Working? Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. You are, I am, we are powerful beyond measure. That is my favorite poem in the entire world. Because as Christians, that's what this is all about. We come here and we pour our time and we pour our effort. We give everything we have to these events because you are powerful beyond measure. You have the ability to change this world, to turn it upside down like they did in Acts. And it's in all of us. It's in every one of you. And I have a secret I want to let you in on. A little secret that is so exciting but absolutely terrifying. Everybody in this room is an example. Every single person. I don't care whether you think you are or whether you think you don't. There is somebody looking up to you and watching what you're doing. It's a sobering thought to know that someone is sitting there watching, trying to dissect every move that you make. Is a sobering thought. Because one small mistake can send that person off the rails. But if you live the life that you're supposed to, if you live because you are powerful beyond measure, you can pull those people so far ahead. And this is exactly what the entire youth rally has been about. Let no man despise thy youth. Be thou an example of the believers. And if you would turn to 1 Timothy 4, verse 12 and following, we're going to spend the majority of our time there. We wouldn't get away without looking at this in depth from this youth rally. 1 Timothy 4, starting in verse 12, it says, Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers. Whoa, 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 Paul. What are you saying here? That is a massive task for us, to be an example of the believers. But the wonderful thing about the Bible is it always answers those questions that it leaves for us. How am I supposed to be, as a young person, an example of the believers? And he goes on and he gives us the exact answer. If we continue reading, he says, in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity, till I come give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy. With the laying on of the hands of the presbytery, meditate upon these things. Give thyself wholly to them, that they profiting may appear to all. Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. This lesson is all about you. All weekend we've looked at biblical examples. But now it's to you. Each of us can be that example of the believers. We can be that biblical example so that whenever we get to heaven, Christ and God looks at us and he says, you let no one despise thy youth. You were an example of the believers, just like Joseph, just like David, just like Daniel, like Esther, like Jesus. He will look at us and say, you were an example of the believers. And it's a high, high task to reach. But we're told how to do it. First, he says in word. We're just going to run through these very quickly because I know you're all extremely tired. In word, that means what you say to one another. I don't know about you, but one of the first things that people realize about me is that I don't talk the way that they do. I don't tell the jokes that they tell. I don't curse the way that they curse. That's one of the very first things. I've had people tell me, no, there is no way that you don't curse. I am going to make you curse. Your words, just what you say, can change someone's life. It's one of the biggest differences that we are standing out to the world. And in Colossians 3:17, I'll read it quickly. It says, "And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by Him." Anything that comes out of my mouth, anything that comes out of your mouth, should be to the glorifying of God. It should glorify God more. Then the next thing that he says, Paul tells us to be an example in conversation. Sorry. And conversation is more than what it is whenever he said in words. Conversation isn't whenever we talk together. Conversation is how you live your life, your conversation throughout your life, what you're telling people by your actions. Our conversation is just how we carry ourselves. And in 1 Peter 2:9, it tells us how we're supposed to carry ourselves. It says, "But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of Him who hath called you out of darkness into His marvelous light." We are different. We're supposed to be different. Tyler talked about being that counterculture. That is what God has called us to be. By the way that we live is how we can make a difference. And my favorite example of this is Kenny Girl. My dad told this story Wednesday night at class. Kenny and my dad grew up together. Kenny hit a hard spot in his life. But he came to my grandpa and he said, "You know what? Whenever Jared was a kid, I saw how he acted. I saw the kind of life that he had. I want that." Never did they sit down and study. Never did my dad pull out a Bible and say, "You know what? This is what it said." It was just how he lived his life. Just you being a Christian, just living the way that you know you should, can pull people to Christ. The next thing that he says is charity, which today is so rarely found. So often this world is filled with hatred, it's filled with evilness, and just a little bit of love can change the entire world. In John 13:35, it tells us, "By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another." Whenever we love one another, when we show our love, people are going to recognize us as Christians. They're going to say, "That person's different. They love." And then that can open a door. And we're not going to go there because we don't have time, but in Matthew 5:43 through 48, it tells us what kind of love that is. Jesus says, don't just love those that love you. Everybody can do that. The publicans can do that. The worst people can love those that love them. Love the people that hate you. Bless them that curse you. Because whenever somebody opposes you and you respond in love, instead of in hatred and in anger, that is going to be so different from this world. The next thing that Paul tells us is in spirit. And to be honest, whenever I was working on this, this one kind of tricked me up. I didn't know what he meant by spirit, and whenever I delved deeper into it, I realized that it was our attitude. Our attitude is a way that we can be an example of the believers. As Christians, we should have a positive, an optimistic attitude. Whenever things go wrong, we should be the one sitting there saying, "You know what, it's all going to work out. This will work for me," because in Romans 8, verse 28, it tells us, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose." We're told everything's going to work out. So in our spirit, in our attitude, we can be optimistic and positive. The next thing that he says is in faith. And this means that our faith should be so great that other people see it and are drawn to Christ, are drawn to God. I just gave a lesson out of Hebrews 11 where I just read it. I just read Hebrews 11 and I asked the question, what great thing is my faith going to do? What is the next great thing that my faith is going to do? Because so often as young people, as everybody does this. We discount the power of our faith. And instead of saying, you know what, I don't know if my faith can handle that, we should look to God and say, what amazing things is my faith going to accomplish? And finally, he says in purity. And I'm not really going to touch on this one because Ethan had a wonderful lesson last night about it. But for us to be pure is the only way for us to be an example. And I want to look at two more things. I promise, then I'll let you go. In verse 14 of 1 Timothy 4, it says, neglect not the gifts that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy with the laying on of hands of the presbytery. Timothy was given miraculous abilities. We don't have that. But each and every person sitting in this auditorium, young or wise, has talents. They have abilities. There are ways that we can better the work of the church, and God never asked us to do more than we're able. But He asked us to do our very best, to use those talents, to not neglect the gifts that He has given us, and to do everything in our power to better the church. And he says then in verse 15, he says, meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. All of these things that we've been talking about are not easy. I'm not promising you an easy path by being an example of the believers. And the way that you're going to have to overcome those struggles is by meditation. The psalmist in Psalm 119, verse 97 says, oh, how I love thy law, it is my meditation all the day. We should constantly be focused and thinking on the Bible. That is how we're going to be able to be that example in all those things. And finally, you have to have yourself right before you can be an example. If I am not doing the right thing, how can I be an example to you of the believers? I have to make sure that my life stays in the right path, that I am doing the right thing before I can help you. And it is so important that we keep ourselves on the right path. So as we wrap up this lesson, as we wrap up the youth rally, I want to leave you with one verse. One verse that has become my go-to verse anytime something hits me that shakes me. And it's 2 Timothy 1:7. 2 Timothy 1:7. It is an absolutely beautiful verse that I think we can all take into our lives. It says, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. God has given you a spirit of power. He has given you the ability to be powerful beyond measure. He has not given us a spirit of fear. He's given us a spirit of power to go out and do these things. And whenever I look out at you, I see so much talent. I see so much ability. And I see a wonderful place where the church and the Lord's body is going. But this entire youth rally hinges on what you do with it. We've had amazing lessons, but if you don't take it and you don't do something with it, it's going to be all for naught. So take what you've learned. Take these examples. Take this idea that you are powerful beyond measure and go out into the world and be an example of the believers. Do everything in your power to be an example of the believers. Because you all have that ability. You all have that talent to be able to do it. It is not in some of us, but it is in all of us. And this weekend, as we close it up, I'm going to give you one more plea. Please don't let this opportunity pass you up. If you maybe have fallen away, if you're not being that example you should be, or maybe you're just struggling, and it just stinks right now. And you just need someone to say, you know what, I'm here with you. Get that. Or maybe this youth rally and the people you've been around has brought you to that decision to be baptized. to join in God's work, and to finally become that example of the believers that we all know you can be. Grab someone. JJ's here. Tyler's here. Ethan's here. I'm here. Anybody is here to help you. We all want you to succeed. And it's a decision that each and every one of us has to make. Every single day when you wake up, you have to purpose in your heart, today I'm going to be an example of the believers. Today I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to do everything in my power to be the person that I should be. If you take nothing else away from this youth rally, take that. Take the idea that you can do it. You are powerful beyond measure. Thank you. All right, let's wrap it up.